Welcome to Unfiltered, real conversations with creators, tastemakers, movers, and shakers. I'm Kristen Hess of the Artful Gourmet Podcast, and this is where we pull back the curtain on creativity, business, and the stories behind the people shaping culture today. So grab a coffee or pour a glass of wine, and let's sit down and talk. This is Unfiltered. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered. This is where real conversations with creators, tastemakers, and people doing life on their own terms. Today's episode is a powerful one, and I am sitting down with Maria Costanzo Palmer, and she's an amazing guest. She's a writer, a journalist, a speaker, and Page Turner Award finalist. And her work is rooted in truth and vulnerability and storytelling that really makes you feel something. So I really can't wait to, get you guys to meet her. She's got a new book out, On the Rocks, which dives into identity, family dynamics, addiction, and what it really takes to confront your past. She's been featured across major media, hosted on LA Talk Radio, and is currently working on a new book and a documentary, which is really exciting. So there's a lot unfolding in her world right now. And in today's conversation, we are talking about storytelling as healing, finding your voice, and how food, culture, and personal history are all more connected than we sometimes realize. So with that, I can't wait to have you meet her. This one is really honest, emotional, and of course, completely unfiltered. So let's get into it and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited about this and lots of synergy between the two of us.
I know. I was actually just looking at more of your stuff this morning, and I'm like, God, she does so many cool things, and we have a lot in common with the whole food thing. So I was really just excited to have you on here today. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about, there's so many things that you have going on, but I'm excited to have you here. I wanted to just kind of know, I guess, what was the story behind you getting into writing? Because, I know originally you were a journalist and you said you had done all these other things before, and now you've got this really great bestseller book and another one on the way. So I'd love to just, hear a little bit about your journey and getting into writing. And was there a moment that you realized you really had something you needed to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So writing has always been a healer for me ever since I was younger. I remember having the option in middle school and then through high school to be part of the newspaper staff. And there's something very cathartic and wonderful and powerful about being able to not only share your own stories, but share other people's stories. And that's whenever I really feel like the moment that I started to fall in love with journalism, that also shared love traveled throughout the rest of my educational career. I went to Syracuse. I went to the Newhouse School of Public Communications. And obviously, that's a huge media school. So I initially went for broadcast journalism, ended up in PR, and really loved kind of the nonprofit aspect of PR, really melding with a good cause and giving it voice and thought and action. So that's really how my career started out. On the backstory, you're right, I did grow up in one of America's top Italian restaurants and had sort of a love-hate with it at first, but then fell in love and started working there in high school. Watched my dad turn it from nothing into the spot for Italian cuisine, and we had all the celebrities, sports stars, journalists, you name it.
And what was the name of that again?
It was called the Prima Donna. It was in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So little suburb of Pittsburgh, little fun trivia fact about McKees Rocks. If you're a football fan, about 3 years ago, Damar Hamlin, number 3 on the Buffalo Bills, collapsed in a cardiac arrest on the field.
Oh my God.
He is in fact from McKees Rocks, and his Mother's Day care that he raised close to $9 million for while he was fighting for his life is across the street from what once was my parents' restaurant.
Oh my goodness.
Fun little trivia fact in case you ever find yourself on Jeopardy. But that restaurant housed so many wonderful memories for me growing up, and loved working there, enjoyed learning and working with the public. That's always a very interesting skill to have.
Yeah.
I always say it was really the best education that I've ever gotten. I went to Syracuse and Pepperdine respectively for my grad
Yeah.
degree. And unfortunately, it kind of came crashing to an end whenever I was 20 and home alone. And the federal government knocked on my door looking for my father as he was mentioned in a federal grand jury investigation, not of his own,
Mm.
as to somebody that should be looked into. That sort of changed my life and the trajectory of everything that happened next. And it really inspired me to make sense of it all because sometimes in the deepest depths of sorrow, there is lots of asking, why this? Why me? Why now? And you're forced to face that and kind of work through those hardships.
Hmm.
And I did. For me, I ran. I guess if I had to choose between fight or flight, I guess I'm a flight person.
Yeah.
And I escaped, went to Los Angeles, 3,000 miles away from home where nobody knew my name, unlike Cheers, right? Where at
Yeah.
home, everybody knew my name and what
Yeah.
was going on. And I remember that being a very lonely time for me, really just trying to make sense of what was going on at home, being 3,000 miles away. And I was very fortunate in a happenstance meeting to meet this like crazy, awesome, gambling, swearing Catholic nun that
Oh my God.
had started this organization called Get on the Bus, bringing children to visit their incarcerated parents throughout California.
Mm.
Um, really inspired me to tell my own story because it became less about me and more about the people that she was helping. And as a writer, I felt like I could use my voice for good. And it was also very cathartic too. So I
Hmm.
started first fundraising for her, then eventually becoming the director that led to my little stint at LA Talk Radio,
Yeah.
several media appearances in Los Angeles. And then eventually I came back to the East Coast and had always been working on this book project with my dad. Because one of the things that I noticed, and I think that, we all do this to an extent. I'm a big yogi now. One of the big principles of yoga is that you have to live in the moment, in the
Hmm.
present, not looking too far back in the past and not looking too far ahead in the future, but just
Right.
being grateful for today, for
Yeah.
this moment, for what the universe has kind of granted
Hmm.
to you. But I found that during that time that my father had come out of prison and just really couldn't get his sea legs again, he really wanted 1986, maybe even 2000 to be his present because that's
Yeah.
where his happiest memories were. So
Yeah.
I decided to explore it more like a family history project. So I would ask him questions. I had a little tape recorder that I used in college because I'm
Yeah.
super, super old school. I think you are too, Kristen.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I used those back in like 2004 and 5. We were interviewing people when I was in
Yeah.
Australia, working on a project, running around with this little tape recorder. So
Yep. Yeah.
that was
It's
a
a
long time
wonderful
ago.
tool. Yeah. It's a
Amazing
wonderful
what
tool.
20
Now
years can do. I know,
right. Now we
right?
have these, right? Everybody's
I
just
know.
got it all on their phone.
Yeah.
But, I recorded all of our conversations. I thought at the time I was just kind of doing him a nice service. But then as we got a little deeper into these conversations, I realized that this wasn't just a part of my own history, it was a part of our family's history.
Mm.
And it was a part of Pennsylvania history. And
Yeah.
honestly a part of American culinary history. And that's what kind of sparked this first book project on the rocks. And it's been a wonderful journey these past 3 years. I can't believe that today we're experiencing here outside of New York a 90-degree day.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of the day that the book came out in August of 2023. Very similar. But, the journey these last 3 years has been amazing because it's caused everybody in my family to kind of take a closer look, to be honest about our story, to own it, and to not carry it.
Right.
and to
Right.
heal and learn from it. And
Right.
so I think that's been the most beautiful blessing. I think I, had shared with you offline here. One of the coolest things for me is I really got to experience as a young child seeing my father kind of rise to all the success, right? And then he got to this level, and then all of a sudden there was this huge sharp fall for
Yeah.
close to 20 years, where we became that from this family to that family, right? The
Hmm.
family everybody wanted to be in a room with to the family that everybody talked about when we weren't in the room. And what's really lovely and what makes my soul sing is now, because of this book, because of this cookbook in the making, because of this audiobook in the making, because of this documentary in the making, I've got to watch him now rise back up again
Yeah.
in this final chapter. And it's so cool. We spend a lot of time together in Pittsburgh. I live in New Jersey, but I
Hmm.
do go to Pittsburgh about once a month because let's face it, like that's where a lot of the people that actively follow us and care about the story in the restaurant, that's where they are. And so
Yeah.
that's where I need to be. And we do so many awesome book talks. I have a trademark cooking book event, which is, I'm doing it actually tonight. It's part hands on cooking class, part meal discussion. And we talk about everything from hospitality to food to how the industry has changed over the last 20 years to the book and that process to now that this book has a film and TV rights and everything in between. And we also have a pop up restaurant too that my dad's able to be a part of. And it actually became the uniting force between my dad and his cousin, who was the former chef at the restaurant. If dive into my story, you'll learn that every good story has a little tension. Unfortunately, these two very dominant Italian males had a little tension
Yeah.
as well
Yeah.
back in the time of the story, but they have reunited and it's cool
That's
to see
awesome.
them both in the kitchen again,
Yeah.
working alongside of one another, and us getting to kind of recreate those bygone memories from an era where going out to eat wasn't a transaction. It was an experience.
Hmm.
It was something that you waited for all week and it meant something to people and it was a place to celebrate all the wonderful things in your life and
Yeah.
also a place to rely on those of who you love whenever things weren't going so wonderfully. And
Right.
I feel like I'm always a big advocate for this whenever I find a microphone to talk about it. I think that that's one of the lost features of today is now,
Yeah.
and I'm victim to it too. I just, right before I got on this call, I just DoorDash something myself,
Right. Right.
but it's totally impersonal. It's transactional. It's, you don't have that human touch
Right.
that you once had. And I think for the most part, I think people genuinely miss that.
I think so too. I mean, nostalgia, everybody has memories. I think people are realizing, like, oh my God, we're in this like AI age now. Like,
Yes.
what's real and what's not anymore, you know? And that's why, like I had mentioned to you, my series Groovy Eats is all about my memories with my family and the music and the food and the trips that we did and my memories because I think people want that. Like you said,
Yes.
like it's every, I remember even when I worked in New York and I was working in advertising, like nobody ever sat down together and had lunch. Like we would run out,
Yep.
grab our salad, come back to our desk, eat really quick and go to the next meeting. And it's just like, I mean, it's just like, yeah, there's no family get togethers anymore. And like taking time like they do over in Paris and Italy, they take all day and eat together and drink
Yep.
and I mean, I wish we could do that too, right? But Americans,
Right.
that's all we do is work, 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 go, go, go. So, yeah, I think that's great that you're bringing some of that story back and, getting back with your dad and getting your family back together.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk maybe a little bit more about the book and then we can kind of talk about how that's translating into this new documentary series that you're
Sure.
working on and then we'll go from there cuz yeah, those sound like the biggest two projects you have. You've got a lot going on, but
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So
those seem pretty relevant.
the book is kind of an interesting project. I partnered together. So after I, had the bones of the interviews,
Mhm.
with the old school tape deck, I was able to partner with my former AP English teacher from high school. So I do a lot of talks in schools, and I always say, be nice to your teacher because they might work with you one day
Yeah, yeah.
and they're not going to take your call if you were nasty.
Yeah.
But it was really a beautiful experience to partner with Ruthie Dines Robbins, who's my writing partner on this project. Uh, we are two females. We, at the decision of her writing group in Buffalo, New York, we actually wrote as my dad. Originally, the book, some 17 years ago, was in both my voice and his voice. And I was trying to do like a little matrixy, action where I went from my point of rising action, which was whenever the federal government was knocking on my door, whenever I was 20, and then flashback, to whenever I was really young and my dad was just getting into the industry. And then, of course, my dad was more of a chronological timeline. It just didn't work because my dad lives a much longer, bigger, wilder adventure than I could ever really imagine. So, my voice just kind of got washed out in the process. Now, that being said, as a writer, nothing is ever really truly thrown away in the trash. Eventually I will write my own memoir,
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
I do this next cookbook project, which seems like the obvious
Yeah.
next step.
Yeah.
But the book is completely written in his voice, super fun. So we're two females, we wrote as a male. If we do our job well, which I think we probably have, or at least other people say we have, it should sound like you're sitting at the bar rail with my dad and he's telling you what happened.
Yeah. But I think that's cool because it's about him and his restaurant, and you were obviously part of it being his daughter. But I think that's cool to have it in his voice.
Yes.
Because it takes you back in time, almost like a documentary, right? Like he'd be sitting at the bar. Let's go back in time and let me tell you the story. So
yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think it works well. I think it made the project a little easier to work on because he is such a strong personality that you know how he's going to respond in almost every situation that you could have thrown at you in life. And there's not much gray with him. He's a very black and white type of person. He thinks one way, regardless of whether or not you agree with them, he'll say it. And I think that that's also the endearing part that makes people fall in love with this as well. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect. But it's the imperfection that draws people to the humanity and the duality of the story and the things that make us. I think Mr. Rogers, who truly really was my neighbor in Pittsburgh, not like in Pittsburgh, but he's also from Pittsburgh. But I remember he talked about at one point, he had a little jingle talking about the things that make us really, really good people can also be the same things that can make us really, really bad people. And I think sometimes embracing that and not trying to cast a shadow on it makes you not only more vulnerable, but makes you a lot more relatable to other people because you're willing to say, yeah, you know what? This is what happened to me and this is how we dealt with it. It wasn't easy. It's not something that I would wish upon anyone else or would want to repeat, but it's also part of what makes me me.
And it's real. I mean, it's the real story.
It is. Yeah, it is. Not sugar-coated, nothing. It's very true to life. And, the documentary has been interesting. So the documentary was a project that started actually last February. We signed with a Pittsburgh-based production company because we thought it was very important for this to be shot and housed right in Pittsburgh, as this is a Pittsburgh story.
Yeah.
So we partnered with Venture Road Pictures and just started production in October of 25 and had another couple of shoot dates in January. We now are lucky enough to have the funding to kind of complete all of the in-person interviews. We're hoping to do sort of a combination of archival footage, in-person interviews, and then historical reenactments, which of course are the
That's
most
going to be really cool.
expensive piece of the
Yeah.
pie.
Yeah.
But that's kind of had its own little life itself. So it's funny because you have all these projects, right? And then they take on their own life and then they create other projects on top of it.
Yes.
So I just
Yeah.
feel like when you are a creative person, there's very little downtime because even when you're sleeping, it's like, oh, man, I have this idea, or I should start this series,
Yep.
or I should do this. And it's just like,
I know. I do it all the time, or you start writing down ideas and then you're like, ooh, and that could lead to this. And then you start going down that rabbit hole. And next thing you know, you got 5 rabbit holes and you're like, okay, where
yes,
did I just start and where am I now? What's going on? I try
yes.
to like organize everything in Notion. I don't know if you guys use that. Do you use that program?
I have not used that now.
It's awesome. You can just copy and paste everything, but you can create projects and copy. It's
Hmm.
like an organizing type, like Microsoft Word, but it's
Oh, that's
got
neat.
AI built in if you want to ask it questions. And anyway, I keep all of my like podcasts and creative ideas in Notion
Oh,
by,
nice.
you can create Groovy Eats or Unfiltered or whatever, your book, your show, your whatever. And then you can have little mini chats within there
Oh,
and
wow.
documents. It's awesome.
That is
I'm
awesome.
not plugging them because, I'm just saying I actually use it and I like it.
That's very cool. Isn't it wonderful? Like sometimes technology is the thorn in my side, I will say, but every once in a while you find a really cool thing. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
wow. Like I
Well,
found similar like Notebook LM. I don't know if you've ever
okay.
used that's
I
like
haven't.
the Microsoft. It can create presentations for you. It sort of helps you with
Oh, that's cool.
workload as well. Like you can
Mhm.
create a debate on it. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you
All
know
these
why? Because I
things.
used to just use, remember like the Apple iPhone, the notes program?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But that's not like, you can't organize anything into folders. You can do one
No.
note at a time. And then I'm
Yep.
like searching. So yeah, I found this, I don't know, maybe about 8 months ago, I started using it and you can link it to your email and it's got a calendar and you can, I don't know, it's pretty cool. So I'm,
Wow. I will check it out.
as a
Okay.
creative, I'm not really organized. So it's a lifesaver
It's
for
helpful.
creatives that are feeling like, oh my God, I have all these ideas and where do I keep them all together? So anyway, to get back onto you, so you were talking about your documentary and how that's going. So when do you guys think that you'll have this actually coming out? In the next
So
year, 2 years?
yeah, it looks like it'll probably be within the next year at least.
Okay.
The timeline so far, we're kind of in the middle of production.
Yeah.
We've done all the primary characters as far as the interviews go. Now is more of the secondary supporting interviews that are going to be happening this summer. So we'll wrap all the interviews this summer. We may have the potential to actually go forward with the historical reenactments
Mm-hmm.
piece. Clearly, that's a big, expensive chunk of
Yeah.
change, but
Yeah.
very fortunate that there may be a way to kind of foresee that through and to fund that.
Yeah.
If that happens, then that could really kind of take shape in the fall.
Okay.
And hopefully next year will be all about pitching and selling it to a major streamer.
Right. Right.
What's very nice is the director that's involved is also the executive producer at our local PBS station.
Oh,
So
cool.
if nothing else, and his first 2 documentaries prior to him getting that, title have went to that station.
And you know what? There's a lot of cool documentaries on PBS. I love PBS,
Yes. Yeah, and
And
not
I
only
know it's
that, it's
it's
like
expensive to get on streaming too, isn't it?
yes.
Like
Yeah,
millions,
well,
like Netflix,
yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
the thought would be they would, eventually, give us a deal for the rights,
Right. Yeah.
once everything was kinda packaged up pretty,
Yeah.
but you know what? PBS is not a bad place to land. A
Not at
lot
all.
of, PBS docs are actually getting picked up by Netflix now too, so,
Mhm.
and, because we're such a nice little hearty Pittsburgh story, it's very important for me, especially whenever the book came out, we had to launch in Pittsburgh, even though I'm no longer
Right.
living there. On the day that the book came out, nobody goes to McKee's Rocks anymore because it is a little bit dangerous,
Mm.
very sketchy since the restaurant left. But I had to be down there the day that the book launched because it's sacrilege in a way to be anywhere else, right? Like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
this is where you started. This is kind of like where your roots and your people are from. Like,
Right.
you gotta go. Had our book signing at a local bread company that's still there. It's been there. They were our vendor, Mazzini's Bread Company, been there for 100 years.
Nice.
And it was just nice to kind of reconnect back with that community that has given so much to us and
Mm-hmm.
become such a part of the fabric of who we all are today.
Yeah.
I look at kind of where I am now in my life and I look back at those days and I think, wow, like I learned so much and I was able to really have so many formative years here, and it's really
Absolutely.
helped meld me into who I am today. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because when you're in your teen years, at least with me, like I couldn't wait to get out of my hometown and I'm going to New York and I'm going to go do this. And I've done a lot of things, but then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I'm getting older. My mom's getting older. My dad passed. I want to be closer to her right
yeah.
now. And, you kind of miss home, which is,
Yes,
again, which inspired this whole nostalgic thing that I'm doing with my Groovy Eats and your book. And I think everything comes full circle. I had a
it
friend of mine tell
does.
me that, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, she did the same thing. We went to college together. She was my first interview, Claudette Sherry. She ended up going to New Mexico, started a band, moved to LA. Then she did this. Then she ended up meeting her boyfriend, who's now her husband, out there, and they're back in Buffalo, where she grew up. So it's like
Wow.
we all have these full circle moments, and I think it's
Yeah.
nice to reconnect with your past and tell that story. It makes it more real. It's like where it
Yes.
came from, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, like, when you were first writing your first book, how did you get started? Like if you're like, okay, I've never really written a book before, what were some of the like hurdles that you came against? How did you really get that story developed, right? Because I know me, I have lots of ideas in my head, but I'm not a book writer.
Yes.
How did you make that happen? And what were some of the things you learned and came across and working with
Yeah.
editors? I'd love to hear that process because,
Yeah. So,
you know,
I'm probably not the best person to tell this story because it did take me 17 years to get it all out. It really kind of started with those one on one interviews. And
hmm
then once I sort of had those interviews, it was really about putting them in a chronological space that made sense. And then the chronology of that then became chapters. And
right.
I wanted to keep in mind a couple of things whenever I wrote the chapters. First of all, I definitely think I have undiagnosed ADHD. Really,
Yeah.
just how I think as a creative person, I'm always like bebopping into these like crazy ideas and like,
Yeah.
chasing a unicorn. So I didn't want the chapters to be very long.
Right.
I wanted to kind of keep everything between 3 and 5 pages. Obviously, you want to start any book with a action and a little hook to kind of pull people in. But every chapter, we worked on kind of ending it on that note too. Now, were we successful in all like 60 some chapters that we have doing that? No. But for the most part, we wanted to kind of almost have the chapters be standalone vignettes in a way
Okay. Yeah.
that would really kind of, everything's got to move the story forward, obviously, but kind of if somebody just picked up the book and just randomly turned to a chapter, they could still kind of understand what's going on and still have an enjoyable time with the book. And that
Right.
was important.
That's cool.
The other piece that was really important, and that's just because both my writing partner and I are both like super empaths. Do not recommend that for an author, but
Yeah.
we're always just way too concerned about what other people are going to think or how they're going to consume
Mm.
it. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we really did have to do is we had to, because this is a true story and because there were a lot of crazy things that happened, we had to drill down to making sure that like the truth that we were putting on the page was also fair and balanced. So,
Right.
instead of vilifying maybe somebody that my dad didn't necessarily get along with, like trying to reach out. And this is where Ruthie was invaluable because Ruthie went to high school and, had a lot of these people in school. So she
Okay.
was able to reach out to the families, get their side of the story as well. And then we were kind of able to come to a happy median in how we wrote it.
Right.
Um,
But she was more of a neutral perspective.
Exactly.
That's good.
Exactly. And that was really good. So, and we didn't want to throw anybody in there and tell a story that could potentially scar somebody's reputation,
Right.
especially because I can think of one person in particular that worked there back whenever they were much, much younger and maybe didn't make the best decisions as a teenager.
Right.
But now that person is very successful in what they do in life. And why should a mistake that happened whenever you were
Right.
16 years old,
Right.
be
People change, move
documented
on.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
right and like
Yeah.
public record? I think because of everything that happened to my family, it makes me a little bit more, much more actually sensitive about
Right.
how things can shape other people and
Oh,
something
absolutely.
that might seem quite innocent is not, and it
Right.
can really be harmful. So that took a lot of time of vetting through as well. And then really, when you write biography or narrative nonfiction or memoir, one of the things that you have to keep in mind that I never really knew until I really dove into this project is you're not looking to sort of give a Wikipedia page of your life in its entirety.
Right.
You're looking to maybe highlight, I mean, I feel like we actually highlighted a lot of time. We started in 1986 and went really through like the very early 2000s. So it was
Okay.
almost a 15 to 20-year span.
Yeah.
That's a long time
Mm-hmm.
to document. Most people might be choosing a year in their
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
or, one pivotal moment that maybe like was a week of something that they went through that was incredibly life changing. But
Right.
whenever you're documenting several years of time, we're all very unreliable narrators. Have 10 people in a room and bring in a black lab with a red collar and take him right out and then say, what kind of dog was that?
Yeah.
And people say, oh, that's a pit bull.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a golden retriever. That's a black poodle.
Right.
What collar did he have on? It was like a magenta color. So really, even spot decisions, we're not always the best
Yeah.
narrators of our past. And, we had to kind of understand that and try to, in the best way possible, find what the truth was in telling this story with equity, with grace, but also with truth.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's a hard process. Once you get it all down on paper, then the work really begins because, if you want to try to sell it to a traditional publisher, you essentially are looking at most likely the route of an agent and trying to get somebody interested in your work, which was a whole nother subset of skills and
Mm-hmm.
a whole nother rabbit hole of defeat, as I would call it. Right now, I'm actually agentless by choice. And I feel like I've learned enough through that process that I can now just sort of advocate for myself. And it gives a greater locus of control and a sense of that I'm not out here in this like, universe where nobody's talking and I don't know what's going on. Like you have to
Right.
give up some control when you bring
Right.
people onto a creative team.
Yeah.
But that process was daunting. It was kind of like a crash course in publishing because I really knew nothing before I knew that books happened and you could find them a
Yeah.
lot of times on Amazon and
Absolutely. Well,
you
I'm the
know
same way. I come from an advertising background and creative design. Like, I don't know publishing, but like the food writing conference that we went to, just with the Substack group I was telling you about, they had some really great people on there. And we're actually doing another Zoom call with one of the literary agents. She wasn't able to be at the conference, so we're kind of but she's going to talk about, how to work with an agent, get an agent, and all that kind of stuff. And then the other one, Diane Jacobs, she's a food writer.
Yeah,
She
I know
was,
her. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She was talking more about how to pitch a cookbook, and how to get freelance article writing in your mix because people want to know that
Yes.
you're published. And so, yeah, she did 2 Zoom calls. We had this awesome house I told you about in Green
Yeah.
Gables and really, really cool. But, I'm the same way. Like, I am a photographer and a food stylist and advertising. I don't do publishing, but
Right.
a lot of people want to do, book writing. And that's why I'm asking you, because I know there's a lot of people, even that were in that group with me, that are interested in writing a cookbook. But, a lot of these people are just used to doing a blog or writing or doing
Yeah.
recipes. But I think writing in itself is one thing. You might be a really great writer, but learning how to pitch agents and write a proposal. I mean, there's so much on there. And I know that there's
Yes.
those websites like Publishers Weekly, and there's all kinds of resources on
Yeah.
Substack, but the whole writing thing and pitching a book and getting actually published is a whole other thing. So
It is.
kudos to you for,
Thank you.
getting
Yeah,
it done. And
it's a crazy craft within itself,
yeah.
but sort of whenever you understand, I think having a media background is very helpful, right?
Hmm.
Because whenever you pitch the media, I always say, do not waste anyone's time, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I tend to get covered a lot, especially in the Pittsburgh market, is I only talk to them whenever I have something to say. And same thing with my newsletter. I'm probably giving very conflicting advice because a lot of people think that you should stay consistent, right? You should talk to everybody, the first Monday of the month, the last Thursday of the month, because that's what you do. I do think consistency is important for some things. Like I run a community event. It's
Right.
always the third Friday of the month at 6:30, same place, same time. We always do the same thing, except in March, we do it on a Sunday. Well, in March, everybody's so confused.
Yeah.
Nobody's showing up on time. Nobody knows what they're doing. So in that way, consistency is important. In writing, yes, the craft and practicing as much as possible, certainly important, but people's time and energy and space to kind of consume outside media, right? We're all overwhelmed with
Totally.
data all
Totally.
day
Yeah.
and scrolling and all that. So I really try to only write a newsletter I probably do once or twice a month. It ends
Hmm.
up being more or less, but I only do it if I have a lot of stuff to say or
Right.
I want to kind of clue my audience into some of the cool events that I have going on or show them a look
Yeah.
back on some of the cool
Yeah.
like interviews like this or different things that I've
Totally.
I've done in the month that they can kind of tap into and learn more.
Yeah.
I don't just bog them down and say, "Hey, it's Monday and I talked to you on a Monday, so let's
Right.
talk."
No, I agree. I think, I know there's people that they write on their blog on Substack. I remember meeting this girl way back when I first started doing this, like 2010. Met her at a food conference and she's got a couple cookbooks now, but she was blogging 5 times a day, recipes. I'm like, how do you even do that? I'm lucky to
Yes.
come up with one recipe and get a blog post out per week. You know what I mean? Like, oh
Yes.
my God. And I think people think that too with social media, that you need to just be posting, 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 posting. That's not
No.
true. You only
Yeah.
need one good summary, right, for your
Mhm.
blog. Say what's going on for the week or the next couple weeks and then do it
Yes.
again. Maybe little snippets and sharing other people's things. But I agree. I think there's just
Too
way too
much.
much.
Yeah.
And I have to shut my phone off at night. Like, oh my God, I need to get off of this phone. I need to just watch television or the news or just go to sleep or read a book. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, just
Yeah, just disconnect. Yeah.
unplug.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's too
Too much.
much. It is
I
way too
agree.
much. And so,
I agree.
if you feel like put yourself in the shoes of the person that is going to be consuming whatever it is that you're sending to them, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's an Instagram post, a Facebook Live, if you objectively would be annoyed by how much you're reaching out to
Yeah,
your audience, you're reaching out too much.
exactly.
There has to be a balance. Now, am I coming from a platform where I have a million followers? I'm not. But I am coming from a place, especially on Facebook, that my audience is so engaged with what I have to say is they'll message me and say, "Hey, today's my birthday, and you're the first person that I wanted to tell." And
Aw, that's cool.
I will respond back because that is very touching. Or they'll
Yeah.
share with me something that's going on in their life and how it related to something that I had posted or a picture, or they'll share with me sort of
Yeah.
like a blast from the past. In my opinion, that one follower is so much more valuable
Yes.
in life, not even for like, social media currency, than having those million people that just,
That don't even know you. You don't
follow
know.
me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or just like repost this and I'll follow you. Follow me, I'll follow you back. Like I don't do that. I I try to support the people that are in my circle as much as possible. And,
Right.
I feel that on the receiving end as well. So I don't know. That's my advice for kind of growing an audience, because that's definitely part of nonfiction book writing for sure. If you
Yeah.
do have a cookbook that you want to pitch, or, a true story, biography, memoir, narrative piece, they are going to ask you about your platform
Yeah.
and your marketability and, where your piece would sit on the bookshelf,
Right.
where it's going to be, and who your audience is. So it's important to determine that. And one of the ways that I determined that pretty early on is I started a Facebook fan group for former restaurant customers.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
that it sort of like started as a way of memorializing the restaurant. And then you're right, like it turned into recipes, it turned into little like, daily advice tips from Joe, like my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've done like little reels about like, different places that we go, or I'll take you behind the scenes on our set, or,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
get to sit down and talk to one of the makeup artists or the producer, or you'll get like a behind the scenes interview. So, you start small, you start with what you can, and then you kind of grow, and you always think about like, who am I talking to and what do they want to hear? And, if they don't respond well to a post, then you just kind of throw that idea out and you start again the next day with something else that might
Right.
be appealing.
Do you do your own social media or do you have people helping
I
you?
do. I do my own social media. I
Yeah.
always have. I don't know. I love events.
I do
I
too.
love like that kind of stuff. So for
Yeah.
me, somebody actually approached me the other day, and she's very nice. And she's like, I love all the events that you do. I think it's wonderful. I want you to be a guest at your own event. And I was like, you don't understand that
Yeah.
for me, that would be the most anxiety provoking situation that you could ever put me in, because I have every event that I do is a little bit different. I
Mhm.
partner with everybody, like nonprofits, olive oil companies, kitchen appliance stores, kitchen tool stores, restaurants,
Right.
churches, synagogues. I've been everywhere, people's homes, wedding venues. So, whatever I'm doing, wineries, like whatever I'm doing, I'm also keeping that partner, that vendor in mind, because it's got to be mutually
Right.
beneficial for both of us.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
the same event that I might do at one place is going to take a little tweaking, at another place. I'm
Right.
doing a new thing I'm really excited about actually in October. I'm going to do a cook and book craft edition. So we're going to this custom, I think it's called DIY Creations place in
Okay.
Pittsburgh, and we're going to make ravioli and custom aprons, right?
Nice.
And like,
Yeah. 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 That's cute.
it sort of ties two different
Yeah.
things together. So, really kind of understanding how you can not only embrace your audience, but, people that you partner with, and
Yep.
making things make sense for everybody.
Yeah.
And I can't outsource that.
No.
It comes from up here.
Absolutely. I know.
And
I know it does.
it's a vision. Like whenever I go to my own event, I'll do it tonight because I have an event tonight. It's like what comes first, what comes next, what we're doing. I may not know all the words that are going to come out of my mouth or
Yeah.
but I have a rough vision of how we're going to
Right.
start and how we're going to end. And I can't hand that over to somebody else.
I agree.
It's unfair. It's unfair
I
to
agree.
me. It's unfair to them. Nobody's going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's your brand, it's your vision. I'm the same way. Like when I think about like, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? I'm like, you know what? It would be really nice to have somebody help me do my lighting, even though I'm a photographer, like do that part or help me do the editing. Like you can't do everything, right? Like, especially when you
Right.
have a Substack page, 5 Facebook pages and all these things. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I don't want to like give up all that creative control, but
No.
I need help too. So, right now I'm a solopreneur and there's a lot of people that are like that, but growing into a bigger space, sometimes you got to give up some of that control and that's fine, if you want to do that, but you can't lose sight of the vision of your brand and what you want to do. And coming up with those ideas is what I get excited about. Sounds like you get excited about too. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
100% for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, it's 1:20. Is there anything else you want to talk about? And then I'm just going to end it with, a question that I ask everybody at the end. But
I think
is there
we
anything else
covered
you want?
Yeah, I think we covered a ton. This has been
Yeah.
great. It's been a really fun conversation. Thank you
Yeah,
again.
no, it has. Okay, so my favorite question I ask every guest, if you could share one unfiltered truth about life and something you've learned the hard way, what would it be?
It would be to lean in to the hard times because they don't last forever.
Yeah,
And if you can overcome them, it helps you whenever you hit your next obstacle in life. And, things that may not make sense to you right now, when you look back on it 20 years later, it's like, all right, I have to be grateful for everything that's happened to me, the good, the bad,
right,
the ugly. And I always tell my dad, we don't have this book without you having the struggle that you had. We just don't.
right.
We have a Wikipedia page. That's it, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
So,
That's great. Well, I can't wait to see what you're doing next. And we definitely need to stay in touch. And
yeah, for
I'll be in New
sure.
York. So we'll be closer if you're,
Yay!
in Pennsylvania. Well, we'll have to, when I get down to New York City, we'll have to get together.
Yeah.
I'll be in upstate New York for a couple months. But yeah, that would be awesome. We could
Yeah, you let me know
go
because
have drinks
I
in the city or do
love
something
that.
fun.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And your
Yeah.
your food looks amazing.
Thank you.
I think you posted something this morning about like popsicles. It just made me so hungry.
Yeah, that was a photo shoot for Lily Pulitzer.
How fun is
Several
that?
several
Okay.
years ago in New York, we were doing a social media campaign and they wanted to highlight their new props that they had coming out.
Oh,
So
how
they wanted to do
fun.
like a summer theme with fruit and melted popsicles and drinks and
Oh,
yeah, we shot it in Brooklyn. It was really really fun.
yeah, what an awesome thing. I love
And
that.
they're actually from Pennsylvania, the group that
Oh,
hired me.
really?
Yeah, the photographer was from LA. I did all the styling and helped them with the props, and the art directors came. And yeah, we just
Very
shot in this
cool.
big old lofty place in Brooklyn with no elevator and 5 flights of stairs.
Oh
Good
my
times.
gosh.
I don't miss
Yeah.
that, but that's why I had a knee replacement. Oh my God. After like 8 years living in New York in a walk up building. And then, yeah, I could tell you so many stories, but let's definitely keep in touch. I can't wait to hear
Yes.
what's going on and your next
Thank
book and
you.
your show. And you've been really fun to talk to.
Thank you,
So
Kristen, as of you.
I
Thank you
wish
so
you luck.
much. Yeah,
All
good luck
right.
with your move and let's keep in
Thank
touch for
you.
sure.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
All
All right.
right.
Thanks, Maria.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So I just want to thank everybody that joined us today. This was such an awesome conversation. I love her. She's so inspiring. And I love that, she just created this whole media empire on her own from her personal memories and telling stories, right? That are honest and raw and real. And that's really what Unfiltered is all about. I want to have conversations with people that are doing something creative or have their own business. And it doesn't matter where you started and where you end up, but it's the whole journey along the way, right? So being successful is really just about owning what you love and being passionate about it and following your dreams and doing it in a real and a raw unfiltered way. So with that, I want to leave you guys. I hope you have an amazing day. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend that you think could benefit from it. And I'd love if you, leave a comment in the comments section below. Just let me know what you thought, or if you have any other ideas or questions.
Thank you so much for joining me on Unfiltered today, part of the Artful Gourmet Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend, leave a rating or review, and make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Your support helps these conversations reach more listeners who are passionate about creativity, culture, and meaningful work. I'm Kristen Hess, and I'll see you next time for another great conversation right here on Unfiltered on the Artful Gourmet Podcast. And remember, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living life a little unfiltered.